Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting session because we are still getting our head around digital commerce and digital commerce getting decentralized and moving from operator to a network ecosystem. So the context today is that ONDC is emerging as the most disruptive innovation we have seen that is redefining and democratizing e-commerce. As a model, it is shifting from platform-centric to a network-centric ecosystem. It is one of the most defining moments of our times. But in a decentralized network, the power equation shifts. It becomes decentralized. Decision-making is distributed among the network participants. And who better than Noopur and Koshy to address some of the questions around governance, around trust. So Noopur, first of all, coming to you. You represent an organization that probably is a pioneer in creating a digital commerce on an open network, bringing all the billers under one hood, open rails, open protocols. So from your experience of building a trusted national infrastructure, what principles do you think can work for ONDC?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking that question, Suresh. I hope I'm audible inside the room. So you're right, Suresh, that we've been able to, and we've been fortunate that over the last 5-6 years, we've been able to create a platform which today stands for assurance, stands for trust. But really, every one of us who's been the part of financial ecosystem knows that if we are handling money, we are indeed in the business of trust. And to that extent, it is ingrained into us from very early days that having trust in the organization is the only route to success. And if we reflect back to our lives, how does trust building happen? It happens out of 3 ways. One is trust by association. So we were fortunate that when BBPS got launched, RBI said that we will license every entity that will be directly connected to BBPS system. That itself put a lot of credibility in the platform because everyone was coming through very stringent benchmarks put up by the regulator. That is what I call trust by association. So in our lives, if we trust someone, be it a family member or subject matter expert or a friend, we're likely to listen to him more, and that is one way of getting trust. The other 2 ways of building trust are trust by action and trust by accountability. Let me talk about trust by action once again. What I mean by that is any platform like ourselves, whether we talk about ONDC or BBPS, needs to have very open and transparent rules of the game. For us, we have the document called Procedural Guideline. For ONDC, there's a network document that is available. And once you are very clear that every participant needs to abide by certain guidelines and they have to live by that, then building trust becomes a default. But not just that, we also have to ensure that our actions around building the system itself that is resilient, that does not go down, works a long way in building the entire ecosystem, which knows and is confident about taking our platforms to the external world. And finally, trust by accountability that happens when every participant in a network or an ecosystem knows that end of the day, if everything's going right, it is the easy win. But where things start going wrong, when there's a customer complaint or there's a seller issue or a biller issue, that's where everyone needs to step up, take accountability and ownership, and try to put that issue in the center and solve it at the fastest possible timeline. If these 3 are done, then I believe for any platform, and specifically any digital platform that is dealing with monies of people, can be built bit by bit. So a long answer to your short question, Suresh. Back to you.
No, thank you, Noopur. I think sets the stage for putting the question to Koshy. So Koshy, trust by accountability. So now we know that a lot of rules and regulations are there which govern each dimension of an ONDC transaction. But at the same time, ONDC plays the role of a network facilitator. How do you see the overall governance and trust building amongst the users, especially considering there is no traditional regulatory body governing everything?
Okay, it's a very important question, and we are all trying to put our hand around it. But let's try to see how this is shaping up. If you look at, there is a very successful e-commerce industry today, whether it is in consumer goods, whether it is in food, whether it is in transport, mobility, all of them. There is a set of rules and regulations, laws for each of the sector. For example, if it is food, FSSI is there. If it is transport, the transport department regulations, etc. there. That is supreme. But then each of the platforms who are in this operations come out with their own rules, which could be divergent. And the larger user base, whether you are a seller or a buyer, may not be very familiar with all of them because it's really confusing, could be very many. So that's why, as you very correctly said, when ONDC come in as a network administrator, we facilitate a lot more transparency on how the various participants of the network behave. So we have put in certain mechanisms so that collectively we can ensure. As you very correctly said, we are not a regulator, but we are an orchestrator. So we have, in addition to the top layer of the existing laws and regulations in the country, which everybody has to follow, we have added 2 more layers. The second layer, as probably you would know, that we have a network participant agreement, which means that every entity which is becoming a part of the network will have to sign up to this agreement, whether he is a large enterprise like Google or Microsoft or HUL or a small startup. The agreement is standard. And it's a public agreement available for everybody to look. And it's a very small enabling agreement. And then that agreement provides for all participants legally binding themselves to everything that is there in the network policy. So network policy that way become the club rules. And this is something that is evolved and published by ONDC in consultation to the various ecosystem partners. And many of these network policies are also factored in the protocol itself. So you are able to ensure compliance software basis, digitally. So if you look at the protocol, gives the digital layer, which is standard and public. The network policies give the governance layer, and many of them are mutually intertwined. And this is also a published document and a standard document. There again, any enterprise who come, whether you're a buyer application from, whether you're a telco or a banker or a fintech, anybody, they all will have to follow. So which would mean that anybody who's dealing with network will have a very clear understanding of what is happening. And they can give their feedback, and there is a collective mechanism of improving it. And third is that way we are not giving a cookie cutter solution for transaction, because at the end of it, ONDC is about commerce. So the buyers and sellers will need to have their own terms and conditions, which is their right. So the existing legal framework as well as the network policies provide for each of the buyer and seller agreeing into their terms and conditions mutually and through a digitally signed contract. And all these things are standardized, and this sort of help us to continuously build. And then some of the other additional, I'm just adding one more element, is that there is a continuous mechanism against which all these participants collectively see the compliance, and these compliance, etc., also part of the larger published information to the various entities. So we know, so that way I will rather say the whole model of governance is to make sure that this is a self-correcting ecosystem.
At this point, given the fact that this is a trilogue, and Suresh, we don't want to let go of the opportunity of learning from you. Back at NPCI, we're really, really obsessive about technology. We want to have resilient technology, active-active, We want zero downtime. We get paranoid every time there's a failure. And you have really been the key contributor to the entire technology behind ONDC. You're the one who's built the registry, you're the one who's built the gateway, and even the RSP, you have been the first ones to launch. I just want to understand from you that what are the thoughts and considerations that go behind building technology at a very foundational level for something as unique as ONDC?
No, thanks, Noopur. That's an interesting question because when we talk about governance, we talk about trust. I think some of the structure of the foundational gateways and registries, which are today supporting the ONDC architecture, is basically having all this by design. So when I look at two aspects I would like to call out, one aspect is the aspect of the gateway, where we are talking about a few critical design principles. Now, what is a gateway built for? Because when we say ONDC is democratizing digital commerce, it is about bringing the discovery layer and enabling buyers and sellers to discover each other. So what do we want in the gateway itself? We want to have privacy by design, trust by design. The gateway should be neutral. It should provide equal access to everybody. So I'll just elaborate on that. First of all, the gateway that is there, which is supporting ONDC as an ecosystem, it is data blind. So all you are doing is you are using the gateway to discover. A buyer sends out a search and a seller responds to it, or multiple sellers respond. And when you do the transaction, it becomes bilateral in nature and it goes off the gateway. So that itself, in a way, invokes privacy and trust. The second part becomes very important is the neutrality of the gateway. Now, a gateway today is not defining the hierarchy in which you would see your search criteria coming up. There are well-defined principles and rules. There is flexibility with the buyer side, the demand side, to be able to determine how they would like to see the sellers being exhibited on their screen. So by design, you are therefore building trust and transparency in the ecosystem. The other very critical element we see is the entire ecosystem around reconciliation and settlement. Now, when you're doing a digital transaction, it is a multi-layered transaction. It is not just a payment alone. It is about delivery of goods, receipt of goods, getting the right goods. And a lot of time, the buyer does not want to pay upfront. So the entire RSP ecosystem is today bringing trust, wherein you can decide and define how do you want to make the payment. And there are, again, business rules which are tech-enabled, which allow you to release the payments as and when you want to do it. So I think a lot of tech which is there, the foundational layer of an open ecosystem, is today enabling all of it through tokenized trust, which is helping create the sort of transparency and governance around the entire ecosystem which is built on top of it. But I think coming from there, to me, it's very important that as we are looking at building multiple open digital ecosystems, we are today seeing shoots coming up in the area of account aggregator, in the area of health, in the area of agriculture. A question to both of you, since you've built one system far ahead of time. Koshy, you're working on ONDC and building the entire governance model. So some of the things which we have been doing in ONDC today, how they can be replicated across other open digital ecosystems, we would like to hear your points.
Okay, so I would like to look at this, the thought that you shared, from the point of view of transaction. If you look at, just giving a little concept, if you look at the internet, first we saw about information sharing. Open, transparent, and equitable. Then came about messaging, same way. Whether your email, you could be anywhere. Now, when the third layer, what ONDC, while the Open Network for Digital Commerce is the name there, it is all about enabling transactions. So the underlying layer is transaction, which is a commerce-aware transaction. This transaction could be anything. For example, it's not just about buying consumer good. It's not about, it could be about hailing a taxi. It could be about buying food. It could be about gaining training. It could be about employment. It could be gig economy, everything. or it could be buying agriculture input. So the beauty of an open network, at the abstract level, it enables every transaction. And then that is a foundation that ONDC has built. And there could be, if I just lightly use the word subnet, for example, agriculture have its own nuances. Mobility has its own nuances. If you look at education and training has its own nuances. So these sort of are able to develop its own nuances within the larger framework and easily plug into this large network so that it doesn't become walled garden. I'll just take one example. Let's say there's a B2B application helping the companies to buy inputs. Why should that be only limited to buying inputs? It could be the same platform should enable even to buy temporary workers or permanent workers. If you create separate ecosystem, separate networks or walled gardens, one for people, one for training, or it could be that they want to train their team members. So the beauty of what we have sort of conceived is that is something enable such interlinked transactions among a wide cross-section of sectors.
Any thoughts?
Sure, Suresh. So what really we've witnessed over the last 15 years is that a lot of technology DPIs have been built step by step. So starting from Aadhaar, that gave identity and digital enablement to a large number of people in India. We have covered almost 99% by now. To UPI being another phenomena which the world is watching for us for, and now ONDC. And in between, there have been multiple other initiatives which have shown population scale success. I can think of CoWIN as one such example, and DigiLocker as another. Now, all of these are coming together for possibilities of combinatorial innovation. They are all leveraging each other, riding from each other. And I see this happening only more in the times to come. That being the case, it is important that, like Koshy said, the networks themselves have to be open and transparent so that every other participant is aware of what is happening within them. But also, there needs to be a common counsel and a common thread which is weaved across all these DPIs. This can happen through a larger network policy, which these DPIs will have to come together and form, but also through digital contracts. So, can an account aggregator framework, which is getting leveraged by OCEN, which in turn is providing credit to the ONDC network, can all three of them have some kind of a digital contract for redressal as and when a dispute arises. Just a common framework, a common counsel, common digital contracts, and all of them towards grievance redressal mechanism. Like I mentioned, as long as everything's going well, everything's good. But the minute there is a failure point, that's when the grievance mechanism needs to kick in and needs to support both the buyer side and the supplier side. So a lot of work needs to happen, even as everyone is coming together and starting to leverage each other's capabilities.
Just adding one interesting point, because I want to just build on what Noopur was just said. See, for example, A was the one that came first, and they've already identified in terms of the exception and ODR framework with the ODR agencies coming. So when we came in, we said there's no need to rediscover, reinvent. So we just called up Mahesh and the AA team and said, who are the people whom we have onboarded? What is a framework in which you build the ODR for dispute resolution? And we are in the phase of implementing exactly the same fashion. And also what we did is we empaneled the same ODR agencies, and we collectively agreed when we had more, we will add together. So the beauty is if there is, since we are all working on the similar kind of architecture framework, the consumer also would know that irrespective of where he has a dispute, there is a common framework available and established providers there using SIM. And I just want to give this as an example. I think, that's a very valid point, the need to sort of work together on this.
Yes, absolutely, and which is why, when we started talking about the payments happening on ONDC network. See, as long as the number of participants are small, it is easy to have bilateral arrangements, contracts, so on and so forth. But in order for ONDC to scale, it is important that the money can be enabled on scale. And which is why RBI, probably gave us the approval to support ONDC in the entire initiative. And we launched Knox as a platform to support the buyers and sellers being able to exchange money as seamlessly as they're exchanging information using ONDC protocols today. So, Suresh.
No, I think it's a great example, and as we hear from Nandan also, that it's the combinatorial power of multiple DPIs coming together and adding value to each other. So a quick one, Noopur, while we are, I think, also running out of time. So two quick questions to both of you. First, Noopur, to you, with bill payments now simplified, what is the next frontier? You guys keep amazing with new things, simplicity in payments. We were hearing cross-border. So would love to hear more about it from you.
Suresh, I think we are just getting started. We are very, very far away from where we want to be. And that is the stated ambition of being the de facto collections platform for the country. And to that end, I think we are hardly serving around 80 to 90 million households today out of the 300 million households that exist in the country. So one, there's an opportunity to go downstream, and while we do offer assisted payment as a bill payment channel today, but there's a lot more to be done in the core bill payment as we bring on more use cases and more participants onto BBPS. But more importantly, as BBPS, there are two big opportunities also waiting to be disrupted. One is around the entire B2B payments, where we feel that we can play the same interoperable role that we've played in the bill payment space. And last but not the least, while we have 60 million MSMEs in the country, there's a huge long tail of almost 100 million micro entrepreneurs, which are also looking at efficient way of collection. Think about the tuition teachers or your drivers or the plumbers, the works. We would want to be in a position where we are making it easy, even for the long tail, to collect bills through us. Outside of these two, which are specifically around BBPS, we as an organization have launched a parallel platform to support ONDC initiative in form of Knox. And we're looking at building many such other settlement and information exchange platforms as we move forward. Just the way NPCI has been launching one innovative product after the other, we aspire to launch multiple platforms that can, create digital public good for the country. So back to you, Suresh.
Thanks, Noopur. And Koshy, same question to you, but different. What new interventions, innovations can we accept at ONDC? You are already saying it's going into multiple areas earlier never thought about. So what to you will hyperscale and further solve for inclusion?
The big ambition of ONDC, we are like a baby just starting to walk in two legs. But the big ambition is that it has to eventually cover everything about commerce. So what does it mean? Every product or service which is catalogable will make that catalog visible in this network using ONDC protocol. And different kind of buying application would come, whether it could be Fintech, it would be specialized agencies, it could be telcos, all of them, will come to help their customers buy what is relevant. So that way the challenge for us is huge. We started with grocery and food. There are already other 8 domains which has gone live, including mobility and financial products. And there are another 21 of them online, B2B. And also we expect that soon we will enable international transactions for people to buy from the Indian network. The key thing is, while we are doing in technology-wise all this enablement, we also understand that if you have a larger participation of the buyer or sellers, today the participation is limited to about 10% for buyers and about 2-3% for sellers. We need to have a lot of developmental work to encourage the small and micro enterprises to benefit and leverage from it. So the biggest initiative that we are working with agencies like SIDBI, NABARD, we are working with agencies like philanthropic organizations like BMGF, we are working with Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, Agriculture Ministry, with a variety of enterprises who all have an ecosystem of entities who are not privileged to leverage the digital commerce, and that is a variety of initiative, and we feel that it is going to bring enormous fruits in the next few months and years as it comes.
So thank you very much, Koshy, Noopur. I think that was pretty, I would say, demystifying ONDC, but at the same time, giving the sense around governance, the trust layers, which are built by default into the very architecture and the principles on what it is built. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Suresh, for hosting us.
Questions from the audience, we'd be happy to take those.
So I see that we do have 3 minutes left. We have room for at least one question. Yes, ma'am, if you can just raise your hands one more time.
Hello, my name is Seema. I am from Finacus Solution. I'm working as a business analyst. After UPI and IMPS launch, it's a big initiative for India as ONDC and OCAN. My question is it for to encounter the other e-commerce like Amazon and Flipkart? And what will be the impact and the rural penetration of ONDC? Like, if you can give some views on it.
The spirit of ONDC is inclusiveness. It's not in competition with anybody, neither with what you call existing consumer products or with the companies who are giving mobility. You know, the open network enables everybody to become participant. Unlike a closed walled gardens of existing platform, we are opening it up. So I believe that in due course, we would see a larger participation from all of them when they realize that it is enabling. For example, I'm just giving an example. When this in an open network, let's think about a mobility platform. I'm just using any of them. Let's Uber or Ola or anybody probably would have seen some announcement yesterday in some news item that they suddenly found this is an excellent network to enhance their product offering. So we would see such innovation that is going to come with a variety of networks coming together or platforms coming together to become a part of the larger network. So in that way, I don't see any competition. I feel an inclusive agenda.
All right,
maybe
then.
we can take one more question.
Yes, sir. Maybe one last question. We still have a minute left. So if there are any other questions, we can take one last question. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Anoop from Arrow Scale-Ups, Australia. I wanted to ask you, while you are quite inclusive and you want to work together with people to grow the digital industry, do you have any goals in terms of, say, your market share as a digital platform in 5 years from now?
What is the question? Can you just
Hold the mic closer, please?
Yeah, sure. So basically, what I'm asking is that while you are collaborating with various people to serve the end goal, do you have any goals in terms of your market share, in terms of like size of market or like the performance of your initiatives as benchmarked against others?
It's not an easy question to answer, but if you look at today in digital commerce is less than 10% in terms of buying side and 2 to 3% sell side. So what is our ambition is to expand, broaden the participation so that from the current levels of 10% maybe to 25 to 30% in the next few years' time. which has to happen from getting a participation of a broader network. So we are, for example, if I just give you one example, so we are looking at segment by segment. We're looking at one segment, which is small and medium enterprises. We work together with the MSME ministry so that we could make sure that in the next 12 months, we have at least another 100,000 MSME industries coming on board. Similar thing we are working out for the different segments. And as I said, we are just in the beginning. And we are working out each of these elements to understand what are the challenges in that segment and then building, mechanism to address their challenges to enable broad-based participation. That's what we are trying to do.